Welcome back, old friend. I hope you've been well since our last chat. Just as a reminder, you may call me Locke. I run the Lockley Tavern, which serves as a place for victims to tell their otherwise unbelievable stories and for survivors to pick up bounties on the evil creatures from these stories. Today I have decided to tell you the very first story that changed the direction of my tavern. As stated previously, this was just like any old drinking establishment when it was first built. Always packed to the gills and full of shouting and laughter. I so long for the old days. But we all have roles we must play in life. It was late one evening when a traveler burst through the door wailing. The piano player immediately stopped and the room went silent save for this man. He clung to whomever he could lay his hands on, begging not to be thrown back out with that monster. Since this was my establishment, I rounded the corner of the bar and confronted the mess of a man. He had bloody scratch marks on his torso and arms, clothes shredded. I asked him, "What do you mean a monster? Who did this to you?" With the acknowledgement from me, he stumbled his way to stand before me before collapsing to the ground and clutching at my trousers. "Please, I tried to help them, but it was too late. I had to leave them behind at the mercy of the beast." His hysterics made everyone in my establishment anxious, including me, so I took a firm stance to try to gain control of the situation. "Sir, what beast do you speak of? What has happened on this night?" I only raised my voice enough to cover his sobbing. He was unable to pull himself together much, but told his tale regardless. He and his troupe of performers were traveling down a back road to their next destination, as were their routine. They performed in one town and then would take the back roads to the next town and so forth during their performance season. Now, these back roads were known to be dangerous and riddled with thieves. However, he and his troupe felt confident that they could handle any danger the road could throw at them. He now realized how wrong they were. Looking into his dead eyes, he spoke. I could feel the weight of their mistake. He recalled that around midday, they came across a woman lying in the middle of the road, and her injuries looked much like his own do now. Upon discovering that the woman was indeed alive, the troupe did not feel wary of her, jumping to clean and bandage her wounds. They would treat her and take care of her until they reached the next town, hoping her family or anyone who knew her would be there. The woman began to stir around when the sun dipped below the tree line. She thanked those tending to her, and when asked what happened to her, she said that she couldn't remember. They had already suspected a large animal must be involved, but they could not puzzle out what a woman was doing in the woods on the back road alone. They didn't want to trouble her with too many questions, though, and instead chose to be happy that she woke up at all. By the time night fell upon them, they were already well acquainted with the lady and shared jokes with her as they set up camp for the night. Around when they finished their meal and started drawing heavy on their mugs of ale, they noticed that the woman had a cagey air about her. She no longer laughed at the jokes or paid mind to the small performances being put on around her. Instead, she started looking every way, and her chest heaved as though she couldn't catch her breath. Then, she lurched forward and began to dry heave. The women of the troop rushing forward to help her, worried that her injuries would be disturbed further. As they approached, the woman's nails began to elongate, as did her face. Thick hair began to shoot out all over her body, which was growing at a rapid speed, her clothing completely shredded from her. The troop members closest to her were frozen in their spots due to fear or just simple disbelief. They were the first to fall victim to this werebeast. The rest tried to run but were not quick enough. Our poor storyteller informed us then that he tried to help his wife escape, which was when he was attacked. He fell to the ground, and the werebeast killed his love in front of him. His feet acted on their own accord, and before he knew it, he found himself here. We mounted a group of hardy men armed to the teeth to venture onto the back road to look for survivors and hopefully put the beast down. However, all we found was carnage. All the bodies were shredded. All the wagons and wares were destroyed. The werebeast was nowhere in sight. All of us at the tavern bore witness to his words and the carnage of that night, and all have suffered since. While most were just targeted, some were killed. My actions that night led me down the path to the role I currently play. However, that is a story for another night. This was the first post added to my bounty board, and it still has not been claimed. Speaking of bounties, my hunters are none too pleased with me sharing these stories with you as they fear for your safety. However, rest assured that my advice is helpful, and if you do have an encounter, the Lockley will be waiting. Thank you for stopping into my tavern for a rest and a chat. And remember, old friend, when faced with a werebeast, distraction and fast feet are your best hope for survival.